us all. Please welcome Centennial's true sweetheart, Annie Boggs.
I'm gonna have to lower this mic, that's for sure. Thank you. Hey guys, like Jack said, what a wonderful intro. I'm Annie Boggs. I'm incredibly honored to be able to be here with you all and speak on this beautiful day. So I'm going to share a little bit of my story with you all. So start from the beginning. I'm one of 6 children, and all the single kids in the room said, what? But I'm one of 6, and I have a beautiful family. I was raised in a Christian home with wonderful parents who care for us more than anybody else in this world. If you know me, you know that I love people, that I am loud, that I'm crazy, and you know that I've never met a stranger. What you may not know about me is that I struggle from an ongoing anxiety and depression disorder, and I've been struggling with it for several years now. Now, like I said before, you probably wouldn't know that I struggle with this unless I had told you. And if you are here, hello, there you go. And if you or a loved one have ever experienced a mental health disorder, you know what it's like to be in such a place of darkness at that time. So back to my story. I was the youngest of 4, and when I was about 10 years old, my parents sat us all down and they explained to us that we would be adding to our family through adoption. And I remember being just ecstatic. I was so excited. I had dreamed about being a big sister for so long, and it was finally coming true. Fast forward about a year and a half to 2 years later, we got to welcome home Kofi and King Boggs to our family. And for the first time ever, our family was finally complete. And it was a beautiful thing. I remember everything about that day. I remember everything about the airport, about meeting them, about hugging them for the first time. It was the most beautiful day. I remember that first night of being able to be home with them and just not being able to sleep because I was like, I'm a big sister, I'm a big sister. Like, I was so excited. And I woke up the next morning, got a little bit of sleep, woke up the next morning at around 4 a.m. to the sound of giggles in the next room. And so I jumped out of bed. Let me remind you, this was the only time I've ever jumped out of bed at that ungodly hour. But I jumped out of bed, went into the next room to find my 2 new little brothers playing with their new toys, with my parents sitting in the corner looking like zombies with no sleep. So I came in the room, and Kofi, who was 7 at the time, ran up to me, gave me the biggest hug. With his hands on my face, he looked at me and said, I love you. It was one of the only English terms that he knew at the time. But I remember thinking in that very moment, wow, everything's going to be perfect from now on. I remember thinking in that very moment, like, it can't get any better than this. This is the highest, like, this is the best thing ever. And so and somehow in my 12-year-old mind, that made sense, that everything was going to be perfect from there, that everything was going to be awesome. And so about a month later, I remember when my youngest brother had his first outburst. I remember what that felt like and what that was like for our family. What I was not prepared for was the trauma involved with the boys being home at that time and coming from such a place like that. And as much as my parents did try and prepare us the best they could for what was to come, nothing could prepare us like the reality of what that was like for us. And I loved the boys since the day I met them, since the day I saw their picture. But the next few years were filled with a lot of joy and sorrow, love and hurt, and pain and healing. Over those next few years, I unknowingly began to stuff down a lot of my feelings that I had. I felt that my feelings were less important because I had less things to do. And even though my parents gave all the attention to every one of their kids, they did the best they could at giving individual attention to each and every one of us. I still felt that I had to hold it all together. I had to put on this brave face for my family and for everybody else that was looking at our family from the outside in. And before I knew it, I was continuing this pattern for a very long time, and I got pretty dang good at it. I got really good at keeping it all together, keeping it all a brave face. I remember continuing this pattern for a long time, and before I knew it, I had so much stuffed in me that the anxiety inside of me got the best of me. I had a breakdown, and I remember my mom came by my room and realized that there was a lot more going on than what I was to then what I was leading on. We decided to seek help, and we went to see some counselors and doctors, and it was there that I was diagnosed with an anxiety and depression disorder, and I was devastated. I didn't realize that this was going to be my first step to focusing on my mental health world and focusing on more of what was going inside of me in this part of my life. There was a few times throughout this journey that were extremely hard, as you can imagine. I remember coming to a few different places in this journey where I didn't think I could go on, where the pain and the hurt of anxiety and depression got so big for me. I remember at a point where I had reached the end of my rope, and I didn't know what to do. I remember sitting there and I was like, all right, I don't know what to do. I have nothing left in me, no more energy to keep going.
Go ready.
Something inside me kept tugging at my heart, and it kept telling me to seek help, to ask for somebody to help me with where I was at. I'm extremely grateful for the role models I have in my life, my beautiful parents and counselors and people like that in my life who have got me to this point. I remember asking for help and that feeling of finally being able to just release everything that I had built up so inside of my heart. And a lot of you may ask, how did you ever get through that dark time in your life? It was the lowest point I've ever been. And a couple things got me there, and I want to tell you how. First, it was that I was brave enough to reach out to somebody that I trusted. I was brave enough to take that first step and say, I'm not doing well. I can't keep going by myself. And I also decided to take life and have a different outlook on it. And so instead of taking everything by like what's happening in the future, I took everything day by day. And if that day was incredibly stressful for me, if that day was a monster to me, I remember taking it moment by moment and going on from there. I think that asking for help was the biggest favor I ever did for myself. I'm the type of person that wants to be extremely independent. I want to be able to be brave for everybody. I want to be able to be that person that everybody looks at and says like, wow, she's got it all together. But in reality, none of us are like that. And so that's something I learned at that time. I learned that it's not weak to cry, to feel your feelings, and to ask for help. I learned that as humans, we are literally created to live in community with one another. And just, let's see, I wish I could stand here and tell you today that all of my anxiety and all of my depression had just vanished at that point, and I was like, all right, we're good, I can go home. But that's just not my story. I love stories like that, but that's not mine. My story is, despite that fact, my story is one of hope and faith. Faith in what the Lord has done for me, and hope in holding on to in the fact that He has my future in His hands. My goal in speaking to you today is to send a message of hope. Again, if you know me, you know that I am not one for all the light and fluffy talk, so I'm going to tell you how it is. However, I want to tell each and every one of you here that I fully believe in you, whether you're an adult or you're a high schooler or you're a child. I fully believe in you and believe that you're capable of anything you set your mind to. I also want to let you know that you're not alone whatever you're going through. No matter how lonely or misunderstood and alone you feel, you're not alone. No matter if I thought my entire journey, I thought no one understands what I'm going through, no one understands, and even if they didn't, they still want to help me. So no matter if somebody sees your life, they're never going to understand. Even if they never understand, there's so many people there, so many people here in this place, at this gathering, that are willing to help you with this and through this part of your life. Maybe no one will ever understand, and you're right, but the freedom that I felt when I trusted someone and told them what was really going on in my heart was incredible. It's harder to talk about. It's easier to say these things like, yeah, go talk to them about it, yeah, have a good attitude, yeah, have a different outlook on life. It's a lot easier said than done. I understand that. Is it incredibly worth it, though? Absolutely. I can stand here today and tell you that I might not be here if it weren't for the role models in my life, if it weren't for the people who sat there and listened to what I had to say. If you can't think of anyone that you can talk to and be honest with in life, whether I know you here or not, again, whether you're a kid or an adult, I'd love to be that person for you. And I know that there are countless other people here at this gathering that are also willing to do that for you. Again, I'm incredibly honored to speak here today, and I'd like to close with a quote by Mother Teresa. The greatest disease in the world today is not TB or leprosy. It is being unwanted, unloved, and uncared for. We can cure physical diseases with medicine, but the only cure for loneliness, despair, and hopelessness is love. There are many in the world who are dying for a piece of bread, but there are many more in the world who are dying for a tiny bit of hope. The poverty in the world is a different kind of poverty. It is not only the poverty of loneliness, but also of spirituality. There is a hunger for love as there is a hunger for God. Again, I just want to encourage you all that if you're in a place where you need to be real with a person and talk about real life, not just the easy stuff and say that you're good all the time, I'm here whether I know you or not. I'm going to stick around for a little bit afterwards, and I'd love to meet some of y'all, talk to some of y'all. Another thing I learned in this time that suicide and the prevention of it, suicide doesn't take away the pain. It doesn't get rid of the pain. It just passes it on to someone else. Again, I'm extremely grateful and honored to be able to speak here with you all today. Thank you so much.